Chief David Midegah has joined us. Um, we had some time, and so I wanted to hear Jody or Sister Taylor. I love calling people like brother and sister.
Hey,
My dad at a young age said, "Hey, it's sister, it's brother. We're all brothers and sisters." So thank you, Sister Taylor, and Chief David Midegah joining us. So nice to see you. Welcome to the Key of David podcast. I got to tell you, we have been enjoying your videos, and the spirit of the remnant is waking up. And so we are so excited to have you. Thanks for joining us. I have a couple of my co-hosts, David Douglas and Trevor Keys. That's where we get the Key of David podcast. And
oh, that's wonderful.
and I'm Shane Baldwin. So thank you so much for coming on here. Um, for our audience, if you wouldn't mind just kind of giving us a brief overview of who you are, and we'll go from there. I got a ton of questions,
Yeah.
and if you have questions for us, feel free to fire away. And just to briefly give you a little bit of background too from my side, as I've listened to you talk. So my great great grandmother is a lady named Rebecca Beers. She was taught by Oliver Cowdery. She was the first Native American to join the LDS Church. And so that's on my grandmother's side. My
Maybe
father, maybe,
we'll go there in a minute. Maybe they were
okay.
together. We'll talk about that in a second.
And then on my father's side, the Baldwin side, a guy named Caleb Baldwin was in Liberty Jail with Joseph Smith. So I have this convergence happening as well, and I just feel connected in a great way. You're the second chief that we've talked to, but that's a little background. David's got some Cherokee in him. I mean, so we all got a little
Haudenosaunee.
bit. Yes.
I am an orphan.
We
I
don't.
know. Go ahead.
Well, I'm bad at cutting people off. I'll tell you what. I don't know what I came into, but I got a little emotional here. Walked into really feeling the spirit hit me through the screen. You know, these light boxes, not to cut you off, but these light boxes, they're used for bad things and good things. You know, the bad things, the propaganda in your house, the good things. Look, we're talking right now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'll let you keep
Let
going.
me let me share briefly that and when Jody and I we got to talk briefly before earlier this morning, but my Cherokee comes from my grandfather Leon Garland Foster, and his Cherokee comes from Nancy Carruthers, and yeah, um
Hello, my relation.
yeah,
Your Haudenosaunee, that many don't know that the five nations of New York, the Tuscarora, as well as the Cherokee, were one people along the East Coast, and they have their own story. And while those that are British calling themselves Americans after an Italian explorer that skirted along the coast in 1502 to see if Christopher Columbus was telling the truth, is this Asia? I'm going to go check. No, it's not. You come from a really noble people.
well,
Yeah.
well, I'm looking forward to hearing that.
Yeah. So
Well,
I'd say,
Chief
yeah.
Midegah, give us some background and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I do want to say for those that are watching, and this is sort of the aftermath of what maybe was a flood that came a little faster for most than what they were expecting. You know, I'd say I want to honor my ancestors who have walked on the land, and so I want to speak their tongue and to speak to them first, because we know, especially you that are Latter-day Saints, that we were spirits prior to coming here, and we're spirits when we leave here, and the spirits that came here before with the spirits that are going to come here. And there's more of them than there are us. And they're relying on us to bridge the gap, especially right now before we reach charred earth, which isn't going to happen because our creator's a loving God. He'd never let that happen. Hey, your child picks up the remote and starts playing crazy. Before you destroy his entire entertainment center, he's going to take it away and be like, hold on a second here. Let me show you what's going on. So I'd say, ni, ganina na bojo, mirio gichi daan indigo jiboy mung, adik sangab nindu dem, mini wakan nindunja ba. I'd say, ni means I see your spirit, I see your light. That's how we said hello, because it didn't matter what you looked like on the outside. It's what's right there looking through those eyes. We'd say, ginina na bojo, is the creator working in your life? Are you a reflection of the creator? It matters more what's in your heart. That's what we're looking at. What's the heart of the matter? Someone told me that one time from Utah. That guy was a little wild, but he was true on that part. I'm called the kind warrior man of the Ojibwe people. We are Anishinaabe, we are Ojibwe, we are Ojibwe. We are 3 in 1. We don't get all wrapped up about that because we know we're spirits tethered to this earth. We're spirits in a body, Ojibwe, spirits tethered to the earth, lowered, Anishinaabe, and then we're Ojibways. I'm recording a vision with the Creator, but so are you. You are also Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, and Ojibwe. I'm not different than you. I'm from the Standing Firm Deer family. The Standing Firm was because of another issue, but we're the Great Deer family. We're from one of the original 7 clans that were organized of the Algonquin Anishinaabe. There are now 49, as over the last 7 generations, they have had subdivisions of 7 for each clan, which again, you know, the elk dudum is the same as the caribou dudum. It's just where they're at. I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but I am also a member of the Midegah, or the people who call themselves kindness, that was established by the great Peacemaker when he walked amongst us in the 7 nations of North America. Now you may say, gosh, there's like 600 tribes. No, there's not. Language is family, and there are only 7 of them, and he walks amongst them all.
Do you speak Algonquin? Is that the language that your tribe speaks or derives from?
Yep. So it can be called many things depending upon the expression of the identity you pick. So it can be called Anishinaabe-Moan, Ojibwe-Moan, or Algonquin. It's the same. And this language is spoken by the Mi'kmaq people on the East Coast all the way to the Nez Perce of Northeast Oregon, where I was born and grew up. Because we had
so are you familiar with the Wampanoag? Did I say that right? The Wampanoag.
Oh yeah,
people?
I know all about the Wampanoag. And
so that's where I come from.
Hey, you know a little bit about the Thanksgiving story then.
Yes.
You know, in the late 1890s, when they decided to make this a holiday, they happened to choose the day of genocide, or a point of genocide, when in 1626 or 27, there's disputes. The Puritans fasted for 3 days, and on the 4th day, they headed out. And they murdered the last 700 of the Pequot Indians. They're a family. And it's the first image of genocide. This is important to talk about the significance of your ancestors, because they're the ones that warned us. Maybe these aren't the brothers we were waiting for. But the brothers we were waiting for were the ones that came through the hearts of Joseph Smith, that he said, hey, wait a minute, maybe we need to plumb line ourselves here. And so what happened is the first image of genocide was a drawing of that massacre that was sent to England. It was published in the London newspaper. And that's the first image of genocide in the recorded world history. We know there's been lots of genocide. It's the first one someone made a picture of. You know, the first photograph of genocide was in the 1890 Wounded Knee Massacre, where all those American soldiers stood over the grave of those mothers and children, who and those men received 20 medals of honor that they still won't take away. So, you know, are they really sorry? But the Wampanoag were the ones that they sent 90 warriors to circle around the outside of those Puritan camp in case they came for them next. And so they had time to get their women and children away, because we're talking about families here. And the Wampanoag for the last 400 years have been holding a memorial for that. And so even today, when Thanksgiving's held up there just in Massachusetts, just on the other side of the mountain, the Wampanoag are having the memorial ceremony for those murdered families. And so we have nothing but utmost respect and honor for the Wampanoag tribe, and they're a family, and we honor them. So yeah. So I am LDS, just to let you know.
Quick question for you. So as we've watched your videos, and they've literally gone viral. I mean, you got some viral videos out there. Do you feel like the spirit that Isaiah talks about, that Nephi talks about, this remnant that is in the last day, is this Native American group, that is that remnant that exists here, that Jewish relation? Because I get that sense as you speak that it's starting to wake up, and it needs to wake up inside of the LDS community as well. And we need to recognize that, hey, these people that we read about in the Book of Mormon that we so love, they're here on the earth right now. Their ancestors are here on the earth right now. Do you feel like that's happening right now?
Absolutely is. You know, we had 8 prophets appear 5 to 6 generations before the Europeans arrived, and they showed up along the eastern coast, and they gave us what you would Google called the 7 Fires prophecy. They said, hey, listen, the sacred teachings you have, which are literally you're keeping by the thread anyways, because we had our own continental issue with those that believed that the heart was the path to the creator. Well, there were those that took that as how it was actually given by the people. And let me finish this, because this is critical to understand why it is we're doing what we're doing, and why I'm an Oshkabe was a ceremonial messenger to you, being sent because I'm from you. I am from the Smith family. I am from the Millet family. Artemis Millet, who built that temple in Kirtland, is my grandfather. I am from the Taylor family. I am from the Young family. And so who to come and speak to you but me? An Ogima of a Dudem. You know, I am first. This is another thing blowing up as I get into this. You know, chief of what? I am a headman of a Dudem, and that's the principal leadership. Secondarily, I represent 2 treaties in all state and federal cases related. So I'm a treaty chief as well. They call that a signatory. And lastly, I'm a messenger to you because I'm from your family. And these messengers, many generations said, you need to go west and safeguard what you have. It's going to disappear, but enough is going to survive that when you hit this 7th age, as we tell you chapters that will happen in your journey of struggle, that in this 7th age, there's going to be a miracle. Enough is going to survive that you're going to lead to the harmony or unity of all humankind who are your brothers. And so we are the last ones to be able to speak. And we are also the last ones to come out of a genocide. And so that is absolutely what is happening right now as we speak. And for the last 40 years, great chiefs, like spiritual traditional chiefs, not ones elected for 2-year cycles that go psycho and build themselves big houses and get the big cars and then go sit away because, you know, they help the machine chop up a little bit more. The ones that carried the real heart from the Peacemaker who came and walked with us. Arvo Looking Horse, Chief Phil Lane of the Chickasaw. Again, people who tell you and try to tell a European in America, and I guess the Americans today, you know, that they came in on the West Coast and there were people here and they walked across the continent. They crossed the Mississippi before dams. It's like crossing the Red Sea back in the day when they found themselves in the Southeast. They've been unifying indigenous groups around the world. And we're now speaking as one from the north to the south, even with those that we have been separated from spiritually, even though before you came, we had already been at the aftermath of a real war about, as I alluded to a minute ago, which was that we believe the path of the heart was the way to the creator. It's in your heart. Live with your heart. Well, there were those to the south who outnumber us 10-1, even today, who took that literal and said, then you got to give it up. And they drag people to the top of altars and tear that heart out of your chest, hold it up in the sky. Oh, you've made it there because you gave your heart. No. When we talk about the path of the heart, which is why we've been saved for this moment, we're talking about remembering how much did Jesus love his mother? How much did his mother influence his life? When we say, how should we treat each other? And he said, hey, you better love the creator. You better love your Father in heaven, because not only is there only one, but he also sustains that is in all things that you see, even yourself. Show some respect. And number 2, you're pretty sacred and special in creation. You are, as a human. Your intellect is made, the spirit in you is in the image of the creator. We need to deal more kindly with each other and protect human life. That's a very critically important thing, especially right now. That when they said, how do we do it? How did we do it? Well, he gave us some extra information. Don't ever forget, this is another thing, authority. And I'm going to get there. Just let me get there. Okay. He called 12 apostles in our land too, 12 chief elders. 3 of those would endure to the end. And we have a relationship with those 3. and they made sure remnants existed. And their authority wasn't removed. We just dwindled to where not a lot left. And Joseph Smith went to Kirtland and he received the keys from the other continent to act on this continent with the keys that were already here, coming together as one. And when he said, how do we do that? He said, well, you got to treat each other as you want to be treated. Well, how's that? Well, remember, your first baptism was your birth from that womb, that water of that womb in your mother. And that's the place where you first heard your very first experience, sound, feeling. That's your mom's heartbeat. That's why we beat the drum. Take away all the experiences that make you, hateful or hurtful or judgmental. Go back to that same place we all share. We're in that womb. And we know we're not alone because we hear our mother's heart. We feel it. Then we feel it in ourselves. It's in us. So we need to act with the love of the mother. And what does she do? Well, we see it today. You could be a convicted murderer and the mom's standing right next to him, loving him to the end. That's unconditional love. That's the love our Creator and Savior has for us. That's been forgotten today. And if the keys to judgment haven't been given to you, and I'll say this as a side slot, if you're not a bishop or a stake president, what are you doing judging each other? You don't have the right to do that. So yes, right now is the time where we're gathering and heading to the east for this fall in September, coinciding exactly the same with this meeting in Wisconsin. We're bringing all of our sacred teachings that have been hidden. Why were they hidden? These Europeans were trying to destroy it. They'd catch anything, they'd burn it to the ground so that we can remind you what you're saying is true. And if it's true, then maybe we should do things a little differently because he's coming back. And when he comes back, is he going to give you a mulligan? I don't know about that. I just didn't know. Well, we're going to make it so that you don't have the ability to just say you're acting just by faith alone, that it's a fact. And if it's a fact and a truth, you can't deny it. And if you deny it, then you have chosen your canoe.
And so your group has scrolls, information, stories, and you're going to basically get with everybody else that has their scrolls, their stories, and share those things. And ultimately, we got the Book of Mormon here, and all of this is converging together to show, one, hey, the Book of Mormon's true, but listen, there's a ton of other people with records and stories that basically confirm what is in the Book of Mormon.
That's right. Elder Holland even said the Book of Mormon is 1/100th. And imagine being Mormon. You're a guy in a hall of records. And I don't see that as a derogatory name. That is a man who walked and lived on this earth and chose to follow the Creator of all things seen and unseen, so much so that he did as I do. He made sure his son knew everything in his heart. And he didn't have the opportunity to record his life cycle. So he said, what is it do I got to choose that is important enough for the future? And he was led by the Spirit to grab 1/100th and flee to the north. Where are we at? We're found in the north. What do you find in the north? You find those that went to the opposite extreme. They were so concerned that people would return back to believing that it was transactional. You got to give your heart. Hey, brother, I'm going to hold you down and tear it out of your chest. Well, you're going to go to heaven, right? That they put the grandmothers in charge. And that's what the Europeans found, was the grandmothers in charge. And so you're absolutely correct. That's what's happening, is we're gathering together and bringing them all together. But this is like round 2. I currently carry 4 scrolls. They're in 8 parts. You could say 4 scrolls, 8 scrolls. There are 8 messages, but there are hundreds that were hidden away. And the only reason they were hidden away when they came to those in the north was because of the Jesuits in the 1640s. They finally came to Sault Ste. Marie. We called it the place of rapids. We're the center of Garden River Ojibwe Nation, within which is the cave where the first mother and father are buried. And you are not wrong to say Adam and Eve were upon this land. And we presented all of them to them. And they said, verbatim, you will make a new Bible. And they started burning everything. And we said, We just have more of the story than you. You're our brothers. What are you doing? So these things were taken and hidden away. But we already knew this would happen. We just had hoped that the first ones that came on the East Coast proved to be the brother of like war. And we thought when the Catholics showed up that they would be the brother of kindness. No, they were the brothers of war. And so we're bringing those out to sustain a few things. One, yes, we did come to this continent following the flood. The first story shared with the Orthodox rabbis, and we went to the most hardcore first, was because if they accept it, then everybody else, what's your problem? And the first story shared with them was, after the flood, we were all together and we tried to touch the Creator. We made a mountain. No, we did it too soon. And then we walked ourselves in. Other migrations came. Other migrations came after that. But yes, the first people before the flood were upon that continent. Yes, the garden was upon that continent. Yes, there was a flaming sword that we would call light, a change of light that changed the way we see things. And we know now we only see, because scientifically, the last 100 years, that photons bounce off of atomic elements in their accumulations, but we know there's vast distance between them. And that produces this rainbow around you. But most of it's not that. And that was cast before our eyes. And because of that, they built a city in the place that they thought that that garden was prior. And that's right there where they find these things and along the Mississippi River where the four rivers meet. That's the Mississippi, the Ohio River, and that Missouri River. It's right there. He wasn't wrong. But we didn't have an opportunity to speak then. So I know I'm dumping a lot of things.
This is incredible. So what can those that, and I call myself Mormon, what can those that are Mormon do to support our brothers and our sisters in their effort to bring more of that truth forward? Like, what can Mormons that are watching this do to support our brothers and sisters? Because I know I'm so grateful for the Book of Mormon and the teachings of the Book of Mormon. I read it every day. I love it. I would die for it, right? So what can we do to support the Ojibways or the Cherokees or all of these nations that are now coming together, and we're now in a place where we can create these platforms where they can speak and tell their stories and their truths to confirm what we've learned in the Book of Mormon?
Well, we can speak your language too now. That's another gift. So I guess the first thing is get your heart in the right place. I'd say do your part, P-A-R-T. Pray, act in faith, rely on the Spirit, and trust that what's occurring is from the Lord. That's number one. Number two, read your Book of Mormon. Read it. Not, oh, I believe it's true, and you scan through it. Sit down every day and read it. And the third thing is believe that it is true, that it is your right to know that it's true, not by faith alone. And if the prophecies are true, these are words and sayings from prophets. These are people that are chosen by God Almighty to help you. If they were really helping you, then what they said was true, and that the day would come where we would stand up, able to stand up, and we would say, "You're my brother. Welcome home. And will you welcome us into our home?" So have an open heart. Now, all I said, this is it. Hey, we're going to bring some scrolls out. We're going to confirm that, yes, we came here after the flood, after the tower. Yes, we're going to confirm we came here after the Creator's Lodge was destroyed. Yes, Adam and Eve are really from here. Yes, Joseph Smith was actually called and given what it is that we carried that was really in fragmented portions, but because we had messengers too. We had people that endured generation to generation that made sure a fraction never disappeared. Don't assume our authority disappeared. Don't assume that the story of the Good Samaritan was not told for you, because it was. As that broken man laid next to that well, and who came first? Those that had the authority with the big walled buildings and said, I guess he must have deserved it. And it was those that were the lowest the Samaritans, and not only just the lowest, the woman Samaritan, which were lower than the lowest at that time, that helped him out. And you know what happened? The ADT alarm system was turned off and that temple was drugged to the ground. Don't let that be you. Don't let that be you, because we're trying to fulfill our destiny. And our destiny says that in the age of the seventh fire, that we will remember and we will speak and we will be heard. And when you are given the opportunity to choose the path of charred earth or prosperity and brotherhood, you are going to choose to be willful participants in unity, because we're brothers. Don't get caught up with the divisions created by media. Don't get caught up with that nonsense. No river, mountain, stream, no prairie, no forest, no ocean can divide our family. We're on a small blue, green, brown, rainbow-colored miracle, falling in infinite darkness, and a ball of fire right next to us. I am glad you're with me. We are spirits, and if you believe it's true, then you have to live it. We are spirits lowered here. We are spirits in bodies. Don't judge each other over the bodies you're found within. And you are called to live the good way. We'd say, Mino bimades win. And the good way means don't cast your brother aside. Deal equally with the widow, beggar, and organ. The widow, better, the widow. I bit my tongue off when I was 5.5, so you got to bear with me here, okay? Sometimes the sides don't move right. We are called to deal equally with the widow, beggar, orphan, and professing sinner as equally as your spouse, brother, child, and professing saint. So do your part, pray, act in faith that what's happening is for your good. Rely on the Spirit to bring these things to pass, and trust this is of the Lord. And if it sustains your faith, the very thing you tell to those regular Christians, accept us because we build upon what you have. Don't reverse that judgment on us. We are building upon what you have. And if you are Mormons, and you are Mormons, you are following the teachings of Mormon, that he safeguarded for you, gave his life for you, passed to his son for you, a son who fulfilled his mission for you to be able to be here today. Don't do to us what they did to you. Give us the chance to speak. And don't find reasons to belittle and demean and to say, question identity. Well, then we'll question yours. You state that what you have comes from the Native American. Well, if you attack the Native American trying to sustain that, what's that do good to you? If you attack the Jew who's standing with the Native American right now, right? Then how can you claim to have anything from the Native American or the Jew? What if they both just said, well, then fine, you can't speak for us. You're blind. How would you be any different than that priest who looked at that broken man and said, you must deserve what came to you? It's not true. We're here to help you because he's coming back. We know this to be true. And we're told that in these days, these things will be gathered in the land of the hilly country. And when that happens, that bright light will be brighter than the sun in the sky coming from the east. But don't fear, because that's the great peacemaker coming to fulfill his promises. And he always keeps his promises. That's a lot.
Legendary.
Trevor, David, you guys
long-winded, brother.
You're like my grandfather. He had the gift of gab, but it's a blessing. That's incredible.
It came slow. Hey, listen, I was 5.5. I severed my tongue, carried it home in my hand. Mom lost her ever-loving mind. Didn't talk for a year, had a lot of time to observe, and then something happened. The moment I started to talk, I was kidnapped for 2 years, lived in the Cascade Mountains of Oregon and Washington, and spent most of my time in nature alone. And that's where I found my creator, my Father in heaven, that great spirit that was moving with me. I even befriended a moose. I'm not even kidding you. A bull moose who used to come and sit with me next to a hot spring I found. And then when they found us, they helped me to speak. And at that time I spoke, and I was very fortunate before that happened. I was baptized. I remember my missionaries, and if they ever see this today, I know they're living. Elder Martin, Elder Zugi, your effort for my family is well noted. My mother was the black sheep. Why was she the black sheep? As we like to judge each other within the church, even those that are in the church saying, I'm not in the church. What are you talking about? I can be in both camps as one. It's one family. And my mother had a violent thing happen to her as a teenager, and she never recovered, and she went the wrong way because there were too many of those surrounding her that judged her as a young child for the struggles in her heart, the scars, as Jody talked about, that were left there by other people. And so my mother was troubled, but thank goodness she was smart enough and knew enough within her heart to let me be baptized. And so the Spirit was with me and protected me. And then when I could speak, right, I cared more to listen first. And I listened to my elders from the restored church, but I also listened to my elders from that was never taken away. And this is my message to the church, and I hope you don't cut this out. But do not forget that we had elders that endured upon our land so that we would be here to talk to you.
How old were you when you?
Go ahead,
sorry.
David.
I've got questions.
Go fire away.
How old were you when you were kidnapped?
The summer after I turned 9. It would have been this month in 1987.
How old were you when you were baptized?
I was 9 years. I had literally just turned 9 years old. It was May of 1987.
Were you kidnapped by a family member or a stranger?
No, my mother had strangers. My mother was involved, and we'll share this online when people say how I am. I'm the most transparent person there. Listen, I'm like one of the few guys that has actually shared their transcripts.
I love it. Listen, I have a book, and I have a statement in my book, and it says transparency is a superpower. It's a superpower. So keep going.
Listen, whenever you see a candle lit, that's transparency. You will see the darkest shadow around the candle. Okay. So I find that, well, if I light the candle and the dark shadows come, it must be because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay. So my mom was involved with biker gangs. And these biker gangs ran a drug trade from northern Idaho, Washington, Oregon, down to California. And I was involved at the highest levels, going to really big mansions down in San Francisco that had black surfaced bottoms of pools. And I asked a question as a young boy, why is it black? And they said, so you don't see what's at the bottom. Okay. And one night I woke up because I heard dripping sounds, and I'm going to share this live. And this is the FBI already knows. But I watched the body dismembered. The very next day, everybody involved was gone. We were thrown in a Willie's Jeep. We were gone, staying amongst different families for a while along the West Coast until eventually our names were changed. So we were in the mountains, and I didn't see my mother anymore. And we were with bikers who were horrific, who were molesting my twin. And I am grateful that I saw something. It was like tinsel falling through the sky. If it turns, you'd see a flicker and it'd be gone. And I would follow it into the woods. And then I would disappear every day. And when I came back, they would never freak out. They were more happy that I just was gone. It's not like I could have gone anywhere because of where we were at. And along that journey, for that year and a half where I didn't see my mother, I spent probably 10 to 12 hours a day in nature alone until I found, and then in the last probably 6 to 9 months, I found a hot spring. It was literally like bubbling out of the ground, like this, just water bubbling out of the ground. And I would clear it out and make a place to sit. And then a bull moose arrived. And then for a couple of weeks, this bull moose would be there until he was right next to me and I was petting him, and then we were walking around together. And then I realized the heart that was in me was in him too. The spirit that's in me was in him too. Maybe we should look at animals a little differently. You know, in the 7 laws of Noah, they would call that, you know, when they do their 7 laws, they say you need to treat animals with respect. You know, after there's only one God, that God's in everything. Humanity's sacred. You know, if humanity's sacred, don't take away from one what they've gained. That's private property. But hey, take a look around at nature. Well, we call that honesty and truth. And so I saw that, and so for me, it wasn't a bad time. It was a time where I realized that there was a God. And I know that's a sidestep there, but that's what happened.
So speaking of mothers, I've got a
Thank you.
question for your tribe. My question is, in the Ojibwe tribe, what is the role of the women as ministers, priestesses, prophets, healers? What is their role? Because I am so drawn to my own mother. Like, I don't call my dad if I'm sick. I don't call my dad and say I'm sick. I call my mom
Oh, your
to
mom.
heal me. But give me, as you've talked about your own mother, and then just in the tribe, how are the women treated, and what kind of role do they play?
Well, I first want to say that I had the greatest grandmothers that any child could have. My grandmother, Beverly Jean Bushnell Taylor, was a literal saint. And my grandmother, Patricia Rose Breen Brunel, was equally a saint. And so the mother in our tradition, but also in my experience as a child with the church, sets the direction. We use the feather to try to teach this teaching. We're not like, I picked up a feather, waving a feather around. No, I already told you the drum represents, we're trying to, everyone hear it, take you back to the womb. The feather is trying to teach you as a man that, and I'll just tell you, you have the priesthood to catch up to the mother. They have creation inside them. They made your heart inside them. You are the one who has to catch up.
Amen.
The thin side of the feather represents the direction. The mother already naturally thinks for the generations that are unborn. The mother looks at her children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and calls them her own fully. And she thinks for them. It is us men. It's us who see the things we can pile up for ourselves. And then we in turn harm our mothers. And is not your wife a mother? So the thick side of the feather represents lift or descent. That's the action, the execution, the application, and that responsibility is upon the male. Our actions will either lift or descend. And we've done a lot of descent, and it's time for us to lift. So the mother sets the heart, the way you're supposed to conduct yourself. And then you have to execute that. And that's everything that the priesthood does. We have the priesthood. We call it the priesthood. The Midegah, the path of kindness. It's just a word. Don't get caught up with the sounds. The tower changed everybody's languages. It's the meaning in the heart that's the same. You can see two people speaking two different tongues. They hug their kid, and they said they love them. All right? So don't get caught up over it. And so that's the relationship, is that they set the direction. They're going to tell you to live with your heart. No different than Jesus told you. The path to me is right there inside you. Are you going to do it or not? But you have to do it. Priesthood is the authority to set the example for those around you. Why? So that we can measure up. And our first mother called herself, because in our story, the first mother and father, they were tasked to go and name everything. And I can't even imagine how stressful that job would have been. Walking around the world on the deer trails, following the great deer, because that's the only highway that existed then through dense nature. And you see the next plant. Oh my goodness, I got to name it. See the next insect. Oh man, what sound am I going to use now? When they returned, the creator said, I made you too, name yourself. Yeah, we know they were formed with red clay. We have the same story. And the father said, I gave sound to all things. So I'm kindness. And I want my children to live with kindness for all things. And the mother said, I bear fruit, and my fruit covers the earth. I am the fruit of life. Ode amen. And it just means she's the fruit of life. And we got to remember that your mother, your spouse, your daughter, they are no different in sacredness as that first mother. And it's your responsibility to produce the environment for their love to extend.
So speaking of the first mother and father, is there story in your lore that corresponds with the temple? I know there's a lot of people that believe that Joseph Smith actually got the endowment from the Native Americans. Did you find that as I'm sure you've been through the temple or been to the temple? Do you see correlations in your people and what they're practicing that corresponds with
Oh yeah,
the temple?
this is why I tell everyone you need to step back and remember the three Nephites before you start saying about authority, this and that. Okay. I'm going to tell you, I was a teenager. Okay. 1995, when I was initiated by James Greatwalker at the Turtle Mountain Indian Reservation, the chief Midegah. He'd be like the high priest, like the guy. And he was sent over and he worked with me. And I had gone through the lodge. I had never been through the temple. I'd gone through 4 rooms, pre-existence, in 3 chapters of this first mother and father, men and women sitting on the left and right, doing signs and tokens. There's something in our hand. And going to a curtain, getting it, or going to elders and getting a name that the creator is going to know me by when I step through into the 4th room. I didn't know anything about the LDS temple. It was December of tooth, and this is important. So I didn't know, and I certainly didn't talk to we made covenants that these things are sacred and you don't share them outside of where you're at. They used to do that in the temple too, that you have. And so it was 2000, and my uncle had said, hey, you're too smart. I was a weird guy that thought, oh, God's going to tell me what I'm supposed to do. I'm top 10 in the country in the 5,000 meters in high school. I was a first-generation high school graduate. I'm an Indian. I'm the guy that could go to college for free, and I didn't go. Because I said, oh, I'm going to wait I was at a family reunion. And I'm going to wait for God to tell me what to do. And he said, oh, you're going to be 50 years old, and you're going to be homeless. So he said, come stay at my house. This is important. Come stay at my house. And take a year, and you need to set your direction for your life. Well, I was there. My twin brother went on a mission, and he was like, basically, he is a saint. I was waiting for what I was supposed to do. And it was December of 2000. And I had a dream. I was standing in shadow and I saw yellow footprints. I went up to the Portland Community College, Portland, Sylvania campus, to the computer. They didn't have Google then. It was called Excite. It was a search engine. I'll never forget it. And I typed in dream of yellow footprints, and pictures popped up of the Marine Corps boot camp. I joined the Marine Corps. Immediately within a week, I had gone through MEPS, and 3 weeks later, I left. I didn't tell anybody. And when I got there, I wrote a letter home, and I got a response on my first phone call: good riddance to bad rubbish. Because we forget it's not given to us to judge people when we're following the Creator and what story he's telling with us. And yet, while I was at boot camp, each week, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people I took to church with me every Sunday. And on the day I graduated, I was picked up by President Victor Biberston, the branch president, and I was driven to the San Diego temple, and I was taken into the San Diego temple wearing my Marine outfit. Past the entrance, met President Clark, the temple president, took me back into room. I didn't have a piece of paper. Stop judging people. And I was sat down and given my Melchizedek priesthood in the temple and my temple recommend. And then I went through the temple. And then I realized these are the same.
Wow. So why do you think, yeah, I mean, why is it just now that we're starting to connect those dots? Do you just think it's the timing of the Lord, and we're now in a place where, I mean, it's very recent that the Native Americans can start talking about and preaching about their religion. I mean, it's, I think very, very recent that I don't know, it's like 2006 or 2007, something changed at that time period. Can you talk a little bit about that, and maybe the suppression, but maybe now that the suppression is over, and of course, the adversary wants to suppress truth. So of course he would attack the Native Americans and their truth. Of course, that would be part of his strategy. That should be an indication to us where truth exists.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. I think that part of it was fear. You know, we can't even begin to understand what our parents and grandparents went through. Many Americans have no idea. They shoot off fireworks for 1789 Constitution, 1776 Revolution. Just, everything's fantastic. And they forget from 1823 till 1883, the whole shift, the dynamic of the relationship with the native change. That didn't have any connection with our parents, but it gets there. 1883, they said, hey, everything that's about you is wrong and we're going to change it. You can't raise your own kids. You can't speak your language. It's a capital offense. You can't practice your spirituality. You can't gather together in a potluck, and yet LDS are gathering at potlucks and calling potlucks. Yet if we did, we'd be in jail. You can't protect your family from forced sterilizations. They sterilized from 1960 to 74, 60% of all Native women. And then admitted it, that they had violated the Geneva Convention. We found out protections of that don't apply to us. Couldn't vote until 1968, but you could vote, but you still couldn't have your own children. My grandmother could vote, but she couldn't raise my dad. So 1978, the fall, I was 4 months old. Very, very providential that happened. All of a sudden, you're the same. You can go to a regular hospital. You can speak your language. You can practice your spirituality. You can raise your children. And in Canada, it wasn't until 1999, except above this invisible line. And we're one family. And they had a lot of fear. So those of us that were pushed within the side of the family that was more European, it was just get through school, graduate. You'll be the first ones. And then when you do that, make your life. They measure things by accomplishments. They say your voice means nothing. Your heart means nothing unless you have check boxes hit. Get the check boxes. Provide service. Prove to them that the voice matters. And when it matters, speak. And don't speak until you're told to speak, because that's called respect. I was 39, 3 months before I was 40, when my grandmother said, speak. And I did. First generation moving into chieftainships. This is after that 2007 date. And of course, then we're going to look around and say, in our own communities, can we even speak when 60 to 70% of them are hardcore Catholics because it's all they know? Okay. They worship the Pope more than Jesus. Okay. And then the ones that are traditional, what is it that I can share? And then when you get the confidence, you stand up and you say, hold on a second, raise the hand in the class. And what helps things is, prosperity tends to make people, not care about things that are important. But when things get a little bit difficult, all of a sudden, all you got left is God. And so as things started to shift the other way, we had more confidence to speak because there was more people willing to listen. And so I think it's accumulation of many things. But I can tell you that, yeah.
While you're teaching us, I heard on another podcast you talk about the 7 grandfather teachings. I think you referred to those. Would you mind teaching me and all of us on this, those 7 grandfather teachings?
Yeah. So these were the first, you look at your Bible and these things aren't in there and they should be there. When you see Noah, you see him alluded to. But you got to remember the Bible, and I have to lay the foundation before you understand why I'm sharing this with you. That the Bible comes from Greek translations of Greek writings of what they found that the Hebrews wrote down. But they didn't know that the oral portion, there's an oral portion, and you only get it in the synagogue. And these things were only recently written down because of what occurred in World War II. Okay. But that Adam was given 7 ways to live on the earth. You can do whatever you want. Don't mess these up. Okay. After the flood, Noah, and we know this name, we say Nusha, shortened to Nuah. It means the father. Got more in common than we don't. And he was given the 7 ways for his children to live. Now, his grandchildren departed to 70 regions upon the earth. This is where we get the Council of 70 Elders from that. Okay. And they followed these 7 laws, the 7 laws of Noah. Those that left Egypt after 400 years, they left that big mountain that reflected light like a star on the earth. They left the Goshen Delta, which was the breadbasket of the earth, the pinnacle of humanity. And God led them out into the desert to live day to day like every other animal in creation, so that they remembered respect. He took them to a charred mountain that literally there's nothing to love about that mountain, except that he spoke to them there. And over a period of time in the desert, they asked questions. And he gave answers, and he said, don't constrain yourself on this. Hey, this is just how I feel. And I can speak with authority on this because I've been taught by those that run their institutions today. And it's written in the Torah. And he said, hey, these 613, if you bind them upon yourself, that doesn't make you better than the rest of your brothers and sisters of Noah who must follow the 7 teachings. Now, we have 7 grandfather teachings that came from the grandfather. Now, they don't just come from the grandfather, they come from the 7 grandfathers that came from that grandfather. And we know when you read the Bible, there's 7 elders. Father, Son, Father, Son, Father, Son. And this is how to view the world. And the Jews were supposed to proclaim this continually to their brothers and sisters. They're the child, and you have children.
Yes, I got 4.
One of the child is close to your heart. The other ones are doing their own thing. Imagine you left everything to one of your child and said, hey, listen, take care of the others. And instead, after you left, you spent all this time talking about, Dad left it all to me. Look at me, I'm chosen. Look at me, I'm special. He's going to, the ADT alarm system's going to get turned off. All your stuff's going to go away. So when I met with them, and this is something we worked with, and we're the ones sharing with them. And I said, I find it amazing. I'm surrounded by all these professors of the 7 Noahide laws, and which is your chief number 1 thing you're supposed to do, not the stuff you follow yourself. And I'm the only one telling you. Yeah, it's true. So there's wisdom, respect, humility, honesty, truth, courage, and love. These apply to every aspect of your life and everything that you do. They're all interconnected because they build upon the other. Wisdom is to know peace, and we know peace because we know there's only one creating source of all things. And because of that, we show respect, because that one creating source of all things is sustaining moment to moment as within all things, animate and inanimate, equally the rock and the living being. Show respect. Well, then we have to show humility. If that's true, we know when we look around and be the observer, well, humanity is a pretty special gig going on here. Can do some amazing things, the highest of the creations. We need to honor human life and keep it as sacred because it was sacred enough to be placed here as the chief of creation. We say Ogima, not chief. And it means an example for all creation, for everybody to feel safe. And if that's true, wisdom, respect, humility, then we're honest. Well, what another man has gained in his walk with the Creator is not mine to take away. Don't take their property. Well, if that's true, then we have to follow truth. Well, then that means all the living things of the sky and the water and the earth, they're in a relationship as well, in a journey as well. They were formed in a womb. Some of them in a womb that formed, same womb that's in the mother of a human, gives life in a day, in 9 months, or in 2 years. Show some truth in extending respect to them. And if that's true, you know all these things are true. Have the courage to live as a spirit within a vessel, a spirit within a temple, within a temple. And are we not within a temple of 6 sides? East, south, west, north, sky, earth below. Is this not a house fashioned by the Creator we're walking within? Am I not in a body? Have the courage to live that way. And if you do those things, those 6 things, then the 7th thing, which is love, is you'll show unconditional love to all things, justice and equity, because you understand all things are connected equally with the Creator. Wisdom, respect, humility, honesty, truth, courage, and love. We care. This was illegal to profess, even if you knew English, until August, the Indian Religious Liberties Act of 1978, the only thing we ever said. And it was illegal to say. And yet it was in the very Bible of those telling us we couldn't say it. Wow. And this is what we have to return to. And we have to make a decision that where's happiness found? Is it found in the things that come from the veins of mountains? Or is it found in the love of the veins of your generations? Pick one, pick a canoe, because we're at that moment.
Now, you've also brought up the seven fires prophecy.
That's right.
What is that? And can you explain what the seven fires prophecy is?
Absolutely. So we had a continual relationship with messengers from the Creator. And even when we fell apart, okay, like there were times when it happens. Life happens. 51% happens. You're going to have somebody who thinks, I'm smarter, I'm stronger. Why am I sharing? Well, at first, the person thinking that's outnumbered. But the more they talk with people, there's going to be a day where they're 51% and then they're controlling things. We had over periods of time, we have periods where we had fallen into iniquity and failure. And we always had a prophet appear related to these messengers or teachers who would come talk to us and say, hey. And so these things were obviously restored along the way a couple times, even with a young boy on one of the occasions. But near the end of a really good period, these 8 prophets appeared along the eastern coast. They knew where we are at. They had always been communicating with us. And they came and spoke to us. 2 of them spoke as one, so they call it 7 fires. But and then we had stopping places along the way, and we just stopped in 7 places just to honor it. But we had 8 prophets appear, and they said, hey, listen. And this came before the European ever came. And they said, hey, listen, there's people across the water, they're going to come. They're going to have 2 faces, the face of brotherhood or the face of war. Okay. So you're going to need to pack your stuff, and you're going to need to walk west as far as you can, so that when they do come and they consume you through these ages that happen. And oh, by the way, here's the bad things that are going to happen in the first fire, second fire, third fire, periods, 5th fire, 6th fire. But don't lose hope, because you're going to hit the 7th age, the 7th generation from right now us speaking to you, where the reason that you're there off into the mountains is going to be, it's going to be meaning something. You need to safeguard your teachings for the end. Okay. Now, so this was received with like a really big, like split our community, but there was a portion they started walking, and they went west, and these became a repopulation, because we had already been there before, of the Great Lakes all the way over into the Rocky Mountains. Even the Nez Perce, where I was born, of Wallowa Lake in northwest Wallowa. And there's records that came out from the Wallowa too that are pretty shocking right now that I just got sent to me. So anyways, but
hold on. So you're getting sent records. Just so you know, we have a chief, and I know we got to wrap up because you got to go to another engagement. So I don't want to keep you. But what I'd love to do, we've talked to another chief who he has records.
Oh yeah.
And I would love to do another one of these shows with you and him. He's the chief. He comes from Nez Perce as well. And I think it'd be really cool to get you two on a call together and just let you guys go.
I'm pretty sure I know what he's going to talk about. And I've been going through them, and oh yeah, it's the same. So we were told, hey, skedaddle west to make sure that something remains at the end. Now, you can say, there's only, and I do want to close with this, and we can go late, and it's okay, because we're led by the Spirit, and the Spirit says we got to share this.
Ooh,
okay?
Amen.
Amen.
Listen, let's talk about Joseph Smith first, and I can talk about him. Listen, there are things that people say and things that really happened. Martha Smith is my grandmother. Now, we don't look at our ancestors and say first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Stop it, because if they were living, they'd say, you're my grandson. Okay. And she married an Indian. She married a descendant of Pocahontas. That's another line I have. And that was pretty controversial at the time when she married Hiram Bell Bennett. He was an Indian. So it must have been the exact same time as your aunt. And it was a big deal. Smiths are married. They're practicing what they preached. Martha Smith was one of the first converts of the church. Her daughter, Elizabeth Emma Bennett, was so overwhelmed with what her mother told her that when she went to the Rocky Mountains, she went and physically met with Brigham Young every single week for a lunch and just talked about things. Okay. Martha Smith was with Joseph Smith when the plates were brought into the house. Martha Smith held the plates. Martha Smith helped hide the plates under the floor. They were physical things that were touched by a grandmother who I believe. And she believed it so much, she married an Indian. Okay. She was baptized by Hiram Smith, her cousin, and confirmed by David Whitmer. Okay.
Remarkable.
Now, there's only a few things that could have happened in 1823, the very year the U.S. said, we're done with the Indians. We're getting rid of them. They're going west. Now, they didn't know we'd already been walking west. Now, 1830, it was on. 1863, four of my grandfathers were sitting in Minnesota with Alexander Ramsey, the territorial governor of Minnesota. And at the moment they were speaking with them, he passed an order, an executive order that was paying people $200 for their bodies, and yet they still came and sat with him. Okay? They wanted us to disappear. All right? Now, Joseph Smith was a young boy that went into the woods, and I need people to understand the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon. We're talking about the history of my grandfathers and grandmothers. Either he observed Indians doing Midegah practices and stole it, which is impossible because he didn't know the language. And my grandfathers didn't even speak English in 1863. So how would they have magically known it 30 years prior? Number two, they would have found this young boy praying, and they would have drug him into the lodge and initiated him and taken him through the remnant that we had that was given to us by our teachers. And don't forget the people called by the great peacemaker on our continent. But even then, when he was in Ohio building the Kirtland Temple, at the same time my grandfathers were there preparing and negotiating with the United States government, they would have said something and they didn't, which means they didn't initiate him. And again, they wouldn't have initiated him because he wouldn't have known what they were saying. Or this young boy went into the woods and the great peacemaker appeared to him and said, hey, listen, I made a promise and I keep my promises. And so I'm going to put within the very oppressing culture the things that are sacred from the people being oppressed. And that's the great, marvelous work and wonder. And it's a miracle for me to stand here, bridging both families at the same time. And I can say that, and because he chose to do that, did he not, and the generations after him, choose willfully to take upon themselves the same oppression that my tribal grandfathers were going through at the same time within the white community? Absolutely. So it's time you pause, pump your brakes, pray, and read your Book of Mormon. Because as Hulk Hogan would say, what you gonna do when faith becomes fact?
Love it. Love it. Trevor,
I've
you got
one
any
more
final
question.
thoughts? Yeah.
I've got one more question. Chief, by the way, you speak with fire. Like I'm just blown away. Like, especially when you began in the beginning, you were talking about your ancestors, your grandparents, like spirit was just illuminating. So you mentioned something that we've read in one of these records that talks about how to avoid war. And this one guy goes and he speaks and he says, appoint the mothers to be, the head of your council and to pick your pound. And you mentioned about ripping out of the hearts. I'm guessing you're talking about the Mayans. And you said something about they ended up putting the grandmothers in charge. Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah. So they talk Mesoamerican versus Heartland attack, la, la, la. Hey, listen, if someone showed up in 500, I always build in the things so that you can understand. If 500 years from now, people show up and they say, oh, people build houses with wood and people build houses with concrete. Oh, they must be two different people. Nah, you build with the materials you got. The same thing's going on in Central America. We're going up in the Heartland, which is built with earth up there because there's no rocks. But we did these things because we had one spiritual belief, the path of the heart. But there was a group of Mayans who would come in from the islands who were a little extreme. And they were a little bit letter of the law over the heart. And they say, hey, what did the great peacemaker say? You'd call these the Aztecs. They were a tribe of the Mayans from the islands that came in and said, we know a better way. 1% becomes 51%, becomes a civil war until we choose to separate spiritually and politically. Hey, I don't want to be around you anymore. And he said, give your heart. Offer your heart. You better walk your butt up that temple and we're going to tear it out of you. And that's how you go. Oh, and if you make a mistake, we're going to save you. We're going to tear it out of you for you. So we fled to the north. We fled to the north and just got away where we were already at and just got away from them. Said, hey, we're just, even they outnumbered us 10-1. They still do today. You stay there. We'll be here. Okay. And when we got there, to make sure that never happened, we said, what did the great peacemaker say? Where, when they said, how is it that I show that love? He said, remember where your heart came from. And he beat the drum. Let me remind you, the first sound you heard was your mother's heart. The first feeling you felt was your mother's heart. Oh, it's inside you. And we immediately put the grandmothers in charge. And the grandmothers led everything because they're the only ones we can trust to speak for all generations. It didn't take anything away from the male. They called their ogimas. They called their examples, not by the things they had, but by what they gave. And our ogimas were the lowest, the poorest, who gave everything. And the grandmother said, that's the good and faithful example. And these were the ones that were the lift on the thick side of the feather. And that's what the British tried to destroy. When they came in and they passed their status laws, they said with intention, only the male is an Indian. A female is an Indian as long as she's married to a male. And when they are not married, the female is no longer Indian, and neither are her children. And this is an act that continues today in Canada about who is and is not Indian. And I say that's genocide. And
I agree with you.
So this is, and that's what people say, what's your blood quantum? I say, well, I don't know. If your parents from California, your other parents from New York, you get to be a full American, you have lost your mind quantum. I'm the same as my parent. What are you talking about? So that's what happened. And that's why we believe that at the end of the day, all priesthood holders should go to the council of their grandmothers and wives first to make sure that what they're doing is for the heart or their gain. Because your ideas don't always come from you. There's another spirit running around like a great lion. And he wants you to convince you as well, like a serpent, to go his way. Is it a lift or is it descent? Right? Things to think about. The priesthood doesn't make you better. It catches you up.
That's exactly, I'm not kidding you. In the record from this other tribe, you have no idea who they are, and you just affirmed everything that is in their ancient records, exactly what they believe. And so I am so excited to live in this time, in this day, where, just like Elder Holland said, we only have 100th part, but get ready, because our guy, Chief David Midegah, is rallying the troops.
Hey, don't forget, Anishinaabe in Hebrew means I am prophesying, and what we're saying is you are our brothers and sisters.
And you are our brothers and sisters, and aren't we all of the same family at the end of the day? And can't we find an opportunity to follow the great peacemaker, his example in peace and love and unity? So I so appreciate and want you to know how much we honor what you're doing. We're here to support you. We're here to lift you up as that feather you talk about, and raise you up as that voice that is speaking from the dust, that will inspire so many people to do their own family history and recognize the Indian that may be within us all to some degree or another.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to have the last word here, but I do want to say thank you, Brother Keys. Thank you. And I can see my ancestors in you, by the way. But I wanted to say that also remember that when a candle is lit, the darkest shadows surround that candle. Okay? But if that candle is focused on the light and directing to what's important and not themselves, it's perhaps a message you should listen to.
Oof. Oh my goodness.
Chief David Midegah, thank you so much for coming on and being a part of us. We would love to do this again, get another chief cloud piler on, and just
The two witnesses.
have you two comparing notes and talking about things. Buckle
Please.
in, as President Nelson said, if you think the church has been fully restored, eat your vitamins, because David Midegah is prophesying. He is bringing the heat and he is bringing the truth, and he's bringing people together. So any final words, Chief? Anything you can sound off to us before we sign off here?
Can I sing you a song?
Please.
So the greatest thing I can do is to sing you a song, because it's sharing a voice from my ancestors that believe something, and it says that it's a great day. We ask for the Spirit to come in, because we're greeting the Spirit with every single breath, because the great Creator who gives all, we accept with an open heart. And there's a period that says is awe and a period of action. Okay, so Aya Gichidawe Bushkegin. Aya Gichidawe Bushkegin. Yahweh, Yahweh, Yah. Aya Gichidawe Bushkegin. Aya Gichidawe Bushkegin. Yahweh, Yahweh, Yah. Pamapi.
Take care. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.